What if old Hollywood was more fearless before the censors claimed to clean it up? Some of these movies were banned outright. Others were pulled, heavily cut, or blocked from returning to theaters. The real scandal is not what they showed, it is how many of them became masterpieces. Before we open Hollywood's forbidden vault, hit the like button and share this video with another classic film fan. Subscribe to the channel, because the most controversial movie on this list may also be the greatest. Number 20, Scarface, 1932. A machine gun burst, an X-shaped shadow, or a whistle from somewhere off-screen can announce that another rival is about to disappear. Howard Hawks' gangster film moves with terrifying speed, following Tony Camonte as he rises through a city's criminal world and destroys almost everyone close to him. Paul Muni plays Tony as a combination of ambition, insecurity, humor, and uncontrolled jealousy. He begins as an enforcer for Johnny Lovo but quickly decides that his employer lacks courage. Tony takes territory, steals Lovo's girlfriend Poppy, and introduces more powerful weapons into street conflicts. The St. Valentine's Day-style garage sequence became one of the film's most famous scenes. Victims stand against a wall while the attack is suggested through shadows and sound. Hawks repeatedly places X shapes before deaths, turning a simple visual mark into a warning. Tony's private life is even more unstable. He is obsessed with controlling his sister Cheska and becomes furious when she shows interest in other men. His possessiveness leads him to make the mistake that finally isolates him. Outside Tony's apartment, a glowing sign reads, "The world is yours." By the end, the message has become a cruel joke. Tony wanted everything but understood nothing about loyalty or restraint. Censors delayed the release for months. They demanded an anti-crime introduction, changes to the title, a stronger message from authorities, and an alternate ending showing legal punishment. Some boards initially refused the picture, while several versions circulated. Howard Hughes fought the restrictions, arguing that the film exposed gangster culture rather than celebrated it. The energy, visual design, and brutal honesty influenced crime cinema for generations. Number 19. Shanghai Express, 1932. A crowded train moving through Civil War China becomes a rolling stage for romance, political conflict, prejudice, and sacrifice. Marlene Dietrich plays Shanghai Lily, a mysterious traveler whose reputation has grown during years spent surviving along the Chinese coast. On board, she unexpectedly meets Captain Donald Harvey, the British doctor she once loved. He still cares for her but struggles to accept the woman she has become. Their reunion is watched by Hui Fei, played with remarkable control by Anna May Wong, as well as missionaries, soldiers, gamblers, and passengers carrying their own secrets. The train is stopped by rebel forces led by Henry Chang. Harvey is taken hostage because the rebels need a doctor. Lily makes a private offer to save him, allowing Harvey to believe the worst about her rather than revealing her sacrifice. One of the greatest scenes comes when Lily stands beside a window surrounded by smoke and soft light. She looks like a glamorous legend, yet Dietrich's expression shows a woman who is tired of being judged by people who know nothing about her choices. Chinese officials objected to the portrayal of the country and its political conflict. The Chinese government eventually banned the film and demanded its worldwide withdrawal, although negotiations later resolved the dispute. Its setting reflects Western stereotypes of the period, but the emotional power survives through Dietrich and Wong, whose characters show more courage than many of the respectable passengers judging them. Number 18. Trouble in Paradise, 1932. Two thieves meet in a Venice hotel, attempt to rob each other, and fall in love after discovering they are equally dishonest. Ernst Lubitsch turns that idea into an elegant romantic comedy in which crime feels like dancing, and every polite sentence hides another meaning. Gaston Monescu is a master thief posing as a wealthy gentleman. Lily is a pickpocket pretending to be a countess. Their first dinner together becomes a playful duel. He reveals the items he has stolen from her, and she calmly produces the objects she has taken from him. Instead of becoming angry, they recognize a perfect partner. The couple later target Madame Mariette Collet, the wealthy owner of a perfume company. Gaston enters her household as a secretary and prepares to rob her safe. The problem is that he begins falling in love with Mariette, while Lily watches their criminal plan turn into a romantic triangle. One famous sequence shows a clock moving forward while Gaston and Mariette are supposedly discussing work behind closed doors. Lubitsch never shows what happens. The joke is created entirely through time, objects, and the audience's imagination. No one receives a traditional moral punishment. Gaston remains charming, Lily remains clever, and Mariette understands more than she admits. That playful acceptance of desire and crime became impossible under strict code enforcement. When Paramount attempted to reissue the film in 1935, the Production Code Administration refused approval. The movie disappeared from regular circulation for decades. Its sophistication still feels modern because it trusts viewers to understand suggestion, forgive imperfect people, and enjoy a romance without demanding that every character become respectable. Broken Lullaby, 1932. Few dramas from this period approach war from such a personal and painful angle. Rather than following armies or national leaders, Ernst Lubitsch focuses on one French soldier who cannot escape the memory of the German man he killed during the First World War. Paul Renard returns home emotionally exhausted. During the fighting, he found a letter on the fallen soldier's body and became obsessed with the life he ended. Hoping to confess, he travels to Germany and meets the man's father, Dr. Holderlin, and his fiancée Elsa. Yet when Paul stands before them, he cannot reveal the truth. Instead, they believe he was their loved one's closest French friend. The film's most powerful scene takes place at the graveyard. Paul watches grieving families place flowers on graves, while former enemies remain divided by the same hatred that created the conflict. Later, when the father welcomes him into the home, every kind word increases his guilt. Rather than building toward revenge, the story asks whether a comforting lie can sometimes prevent more suffering. Paul gradually becomes part of the family, but his presence is always connected to the absent son. Czechoslovakia reportedly banned the film because of its pacifist message. That decision proves why the movie mattered. It did not celebrate victory, uniforms, or heroic speeches. It showed war as a machine that continued damaging people long after the shooting stopped. Number 16. Freaks, 1932. A traveling circus becomes the setting for a revenge story that asks audiences to reconsider who truly deserves to be called abnormal. Director Todd Browning cast performers with real physical differences, giving people normally hidden from public view central roles in a major studio production. Hans, a performer of short stature, becomes fascinated with Cleopatra, the circus's glamorous trapeze artist. She discovers that Hans has inherited a fortune and pretends to love him. Meanwhile, she secretly continues her relationship with the strongman Hercules. Together, they plan to gain control of Hans's money. The wedding banquet created one of the most famous scenes in early horror. The circus community welcomes Cleopatra by passing a cup around the table while chanting that they accept her as one of them. Instead of appreciating the gesture, she mocks and insults them. That rejection seals her fate. When Hans becomes dangerously ill, his friends realize what Cleopatra is doing. During a storm, the performers move beneath the wagons as she tries to escape. Browning films the sequence from ground level, turning the community she dismissed into a united force. MGM removed a large amount of footage before release, and several proposed scenes disappeared. Britain banned the film until 1963, while other countries also prohibited it. Critics attack the use of real performers, yet the movie's sympathy clearly belongs to them. The conventionally attractive villains are greedy and cruel. The people treated as outsiders live by loyalty. The film was not banned because it lacked humanity. It was banned because it forced audiences to face their own lack of it. Number 15. A Farewell to Arms. 1932 war romances often promise that love can defeat history, but this adaptation of Ernest Hemingway's novel offers no such comfort. Gary Cooper plays Frederick Henry, an American ambulance driver serving with the Italian army during the First World War. Helen Hayes plays Catherine Barclay, a British nurse carrying grief from an earlier loss. Their relationship begins almost casually. Frederick is charming, restless, and unsure whether he believes in anything beyond surviving the next day. Catherine senses danger around them and treats each quiet moment as something temporary. As their attachment deepens, the military separates them. The retreat sequence remains one of the film's most striking passages. Soldiers, civilians, animals, and vehicles move through rain and confusion, while the entire structure of command appears to collapse. Frederick eventually deserts, choosing Catherine over a war that has lost all meaning for him. Another famous moment involves Catherine's difficult childbirth. Rather than presenting it as a clean miracle, the film shows doctors becoming worried as Frederick waits outside, unable to help. The ending offers love without promising that love will be rewarded. The childbirth material created a serious battle with the Hayes office, which demanded several changes. Even after American approval, censors rejected the film in British Columbia and Australia. Its power comes from admitting something Hollywood often denied. Good people can make brave choices and still lose everything. Number 14. Red Dust, 1932. Under the heavy heat of a rubber plantation in French Indochina, desire becomes almost impossible to hide. Clark Gable plays Dennis Carson, a rough plantation manager more comfortable with machines and storms than emotional responsibility. Jean Harlow arrives as Vantine, a quick-witted entertainer stranded on the plantation. Their relationship begins with insults and playful competition, but both clearly understand the attraction between them. Trouble appears when engineer Gary Willis arrives with his elegant wife Barbara. Dennis soon becomes fascinated with the married woman, creating a dangerous triangle. The rain sequence is the film's emotional center. While a storm traps everyone indoors, private tension fills every room. Vantine pretends she does not care. Barbara tries to resist temptation, and Dennis acts as though he controls the situation. In reality, the plantation manager is losing control of both his work and his feelings. Harlow steals the film through humor rather than glamour. Her famous bath scene, in which Vantine casually sits inside a barrel, shows how completely comfortable the character is in a world supposedly controlled by men. Berlin banned the picture after deciding it was too provocative for the changing political climate. Yet the movie is more than a romantic scandal. It exposes class pretensions, double standards, and the difference between polished respectability and genuine loyalty. Number 13. Murders in the Zoo, 1933. A jealous big-game hunter turns an American zoo into his private chamber of punishment in this compact and surprisingly stylish horror thriller. Lionel Atwill plays Eric Gorman, a wealthy explorer whose polite manners hide an obsession with controlling his wife Evelyn. The opening immediately announces that this will not be a gentle mystery. Deep in the jungle, Gorman catches a man paying attention to Evelyn and gives him a horrifying form of silence before leaving him behind. The film then moves to a city zoo, where Gorman has donated several dangerous animals. During a fundraising dinner, a guest suddenly collapses after being struck by something small and deadly. Suspicion spreads through the zoo while a scientist attempts to identify the poison. Meanwhile, Gorman uses the animals and surrounding confusion to remove anyone he considers a threat. Its most famous sequence takes place near the alligator enclosure. The scene depends more on anticipation than detail, a struggle, the dark water, and the terrible understanding that the animals will hide the evidence. Charlie Ruggles provides comic relief, but even his jokes cannot make the zoo feel safe. Censors in several American regions and foreign markets demanded cuts. The picture was banned in Germany, Sweden, and Latvia. Modern audiences can see why officials panicked. It treats the respectable gentleman, not the animal, as the most dangerous creature in the story. Number 12. The Sign of the Cross, 1932. Ancient Rome had rarely looked as luxurious, corrupt, and unpredictable as it does in Cecil B. DeMille's giant historical spectacle. Frederick March plays Marcus Superbus, a Roman prefect who becomes fascinated with Mercia, a young Christian woman refusing to accept the values of Emperor Nero's court. The story takes place after Nero blames Christians for Rome's destruction. Marcus initially sees the prisoners as a political problem, but his growing love for Mercia places him against the emperor, the jealous Empress Poppaea, and his own comfortable life. DeMille fills the movie with visual excess. The most famous scene features Poppaea, played by Claudette Colbert, relaxing in an enormous milk bath while discussing political and romantic schemes. Another controversial sequence shows the dancer Ancaria attempting to tempt Mercia during an elaborate performance. The final arena scenes shift the mood from luxury to dread. Prisoners wait below while the Roman audience treats suffering as entertainment. Marcus must decide whether to protect his status or stand beside Mercia. Censors demanded cuts to the dance, arena material, dialogue, and several suggestive images. Different countries received different versions, and later reissues removed or shortened additional moments. The result remains both excessive and serious, a movie criticizing a society that hides cruelty beneath entertainment, fashion, and public ceremony. Number 11. The Story of Temple Drake, 1933. Nothing in this adaptation of William Faulkner's work feels safe or comforting. Miriam Hopkins plays Temple Drake, the granddaughter of a respected judge. Publicly, she belongs to a powerful Southern family. Privately, she is reckless, restless, and drawn toward danger. After a car accident, Temple and her companions seek shelter at an isolated house occupied by criminals. There she meets Trigger, a cold and threatening figure who immediately recognizes her fear. What follows is handled through shadows, sounds, and suggestion, but the emotional meaning is unmistakable. The barn sequence became the center of the censorship battle. Rather than showing the attack directly, the film uses Temple's expression, the storm, and the closed space to communicate what is happening. Later, she remains under Trigger's control in Miss Reba's house, where fear becomes mixed with shame and psychological dependence. The courtroom scene is the real climax. An innocent man may be punished unless Temple tells the truth about Trigger and admits where she has been. Her family name, reputation, and future all depend on silence. The Hayes office initially opposed adapting Faulkner's novel at all and ordered major changes before release. Advertising could not openly connect the picture to the book, while dialogue and symbolic images were removed. Even after those cuts, the film remained one of the works blamed for bringing strict censorship to Hollywood. Number 10. Babyface, 1933. A steel mill town has taught Lily Powers one lesson: powerful men take whatever they can, so she decides to use their weakness before they can use her. Barbara Stanwyck turns that idea into one of the boldest female characters ever created by a major Hollywood studio. Raised by a father who treats her as a business tool, Lily finally escapes after his death. An older friend encourages her to stop accepting humiliation and climb as high as possible. She travels to New York with Chico, her loyal friend, and enters a large bank building looking for opportunity. The famous upward montage explains the entire story. The camera moves from one floor of the building to another as Lily advances through the company by forming relationships with increasingly important executives. Each new floor represents another man, another promotion, and another step toward independence. The film does not pretend that her plan leaves everyone unharmed. Rivalries grow, careers collapse, and one confrontation ends in disaster. Yet Stanwyck prevents Lily from becoming a simple villain. She is a woman shaped by exploitation, who has decided never to be powerless again. Censorship officials were alarmed because the original version appeared to reward her choices. The Hayes office recommended that the picture be withdrawn, and Warner Brothers created a revised version with new moral dialogue and a changed ending. The uncensored cut later revealed a sharper film about class, survival, and hypocrisy. Number 9. Life Begins, 1932. Long before hospital dramas became normal television entertainment, this film placed viewers inside a crowded maternity ward and refused to make the experience look neat or glamorous. Aline McMahon plays Miss Bowers, a tough but caring nurse supervising women from very different backgrounds as they wait to give birth. The central story follows Grace Sutton, played by Loretta Young, who has been temporarily released from prison because she is expecting a child. Her young husband Jed waits helplessly outside, hoping that the baby will give them a chance to rebuild their lives. Around them, other women laugh, worry, argue, and reveal the complicated reasons they have arrived at the same ward. One of the film's strongest sequences shows the patients talking together at night. Their conversation moves between jokes and fear, creating the feeling that these women understand one another better than the doctors or husbands outside. The ward becomes a small society, where wealth and social rank suddenly matter less. The direct discussion of childbirth shocked censors who expected such subjects to remain hidden. Although the movie was approved in America, records show it was banned in London. What officials called unsuitable now feels honest and compassionate. Rather than using motherhood as a sentimental symbol, the film shows the anxiety, pain, courage, and uncertainty surrounding it. You have now entered the strange world where honesty could get a movie banned. Like the video, subscribe, and tell us which forbidden classic surprised you first. Number 8. City Lights, 1931. One silent tramp walks through a noisy modern city and proves that emotion does not need spoken dialogue. Charlie Chaplin released this mostly silent romantic comedy years after talking pictures had taken over Hollywood, making the decision seem almost stubborn. It became one of his greatest artistic victories. The tramp meets a blind flower seller who mistakes him for a wealthy gentleman after hearing a car door close nearby. Rather than correcting her, he buys a flower and allows her to keep the illusion. When he learns that she and her grandmother face financial trouble, he begins searching for money. His friendship with an unpredictable millionaire creates several famous comic scenes. When the millionaire is intoxicated, he treats the tramp like his closest friend. When sober, he does not recognize him at all. Their night at a restaurant and the chaotic boxing match display Chaplin's perfect control of physical comedy. Yet the final scene changes everything. After receiving an operation funded through the tramp's sacrifice, the flower seller can see. She meets the poorly dressed stranger outside her shop and slowly recognizes him by touching his hand. His nervous smile asks whether her affection can survive the truth. During its 1950 re-release, a Memphis censor banned the picture because of judgments about Chaplin's personal reputation. The decision now seems absurd. Few films have defended kindness, dignity, and unconditional love with such simplicity. Number 7. Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, 1931. A respected doctor believes every human being contains two opposing identities, and his attempt to separate them releases the side he has spent his life hiding. Frederick March plays both Henry Jekyll and Edward Hyde, winning an Academy Award for a performance that remains unsettling. Jekyll begins as an admired physician frustrated by social rules. He loves Muriel, but is forced to delay their marriage. During the separation, he meets Ivy, a music hall performer who openly flirts with him. His attraction clashes with the disciplined image he presents to society. The transformation scene is still astonishing. Director Ruben Mamoulian keeps the camera on March's face as the change appears to happen without visible editing. Makeup, lighting filters, and performance work together, making the transformation feel psychological rather than mechanical. As Hyde, Jekyll returns to Ivy and controls her through fear. The film makes clear that Hyde is not a separate monster arriving from outside. He is Jekyll, without restraint, responsibility, or concern for consequences. That idea gives the story its lasting power. Later reissues removed a large amount of material, including scenes showing Ivy's fear, Jekyll's desire, and the full cruelty of Hyde's behavior. Different regions received different cuts, and the restored version revealed how adult the original film had been. Rather than offering a simple monster story, it attacks the belief that respectable appearances prove moral character. Number 6. Frankenstein, 1931. Inside a laboratory filled with machinery, lightning, and impossible ambition, a young scientist attempts to create life. James Whale's adaptation transformed Mary Shelley's story into one of cinema's most recognizable myths, while Boris Karloff turned the monster into a figure both frightening and painfully human. Henry Frankenstein steals bodies and works in an abandoned watchtower with his assistant Fritz. When the storm finally powers his equipment, the covered body rises from the table. Henry's excitement is complete. He believes he has defeated nature, but he has not considered what responsibility follows creation. The scene with little Maria became the movie's most controversial moment. The monster joins her beside a lake, and she shows him how flowers float on the water. When they run out of flowers, his confused attempt to continue the game ends in tragedy. Some versions cut the result, making the later discovery of Maria's body seem sudden and unclear. Another unforgettable scene occurs when the monster first walks backward into the room. Whale cuts closer and closer to Karloff's face, forcing the audience to study the being before deciding what he is. The film was banned in Northern Ireland, Sweden, Italy, and later Czechoslovakia. Quebec initially rejected it, while American regions demanded cuts. For later reissues, Universal removed dialogue, shortened scenes, and deleted Maria's death. Yet the film endures because its supposed monster behaves like an abandoned child, while the educated humans answer fear with cruelty. Number 5. Island of Lost Souls, 1932. A shipwrecked traveler reaches an isolated island and discovers that the animals are not the most disturbing creatures living there. Richard Arlen plays Edward Parker, who is forced ashore after being treated brutally by a ship's captain. Waiting for him is Dr. Moreau, played with smiling menace by Charles Laughton. Moreau has been conducting experiments designed to transform animals into human-like beings. He teaches them rules, forces them to speak, and uses pain to control their behavior. His creations gather in the jungle and repeat the law, insisting that they must not walk on all fours or attack human beings. The House of Pain is the film's most famous idea. Viewers see little of what happens inside, but the screams and fearful reactions of Moreau's subjects explain enough. Laughton never plays the doctor as a wild madman. He behaves like a calm colonial ruler who believes intelligence gives him the right to control every living thing. Moreau attempts to push Parker toward Loda, the Panther Woman, hoping to prove that one of his creations can appear fully human. Loda's growing awareness of what has been done to her gives the movie its deepest tragedy. British censors refused the film a certificate, and it remained banned in Britain for years. Official concerns focused on experimentation, cruelty, and themes described as opposing nature. Beneath the horror, however, the story is about power. Who gets to define humanity? Who writes the rules? And what happens when the oppressed stop believing those rules are sacred? Number 4. The Life of Virgie Winters, 1934. A small town presents itself as moral and respectable, but behind its curtains lives a secret relationship lasting more than 20 years. Virgie Winters, played by Anne Harding, loves politician John Shadwell, even though he is married to another woman. Their connection begins when John is pressured into a socially useful marriage. Instead of ending his relationship with Virgie, he continues meeting her privately. She eventually gives birth to his daughter, but the child is raised publicly as someone else's. Virgie sacrifices the chance to be recognized as a mother so the girl can avoid scandal. One of the most moving scenes comes when Virgie watches her daughter from a distance. She must behave like a family friend while hiding the deepest relationship in her life. Harding plays the moment without dramatic speeches. Her controlled expression reveals years of loneliness. The situation becomes more complicated when John rises in politics and the town's gossip threatens both families. While he enjoys public respect, Virgie carries nearly all the social risk. That imbalance gives the film its quiet anger. Censors warned that the story appeared to justify adultery, and the Catholic campaign included it among films audiences were told to avoid. Chicago's censorship board banned it. Yet the movie's real target is not marriage. It is a society that protects powerful men while forcing women to live invisibly. Number 3. Heat Lightning, 1934. A lonely gas station in the California desert becomes the setting for one of the toughest and most unusual dramas of the pre-code era. Olga, played by Aline McMahon, repairs cars, runs a small hotel, and protects her younger sister Myra from men who make promises they have no intention of keeping. Everything changes when two criminals arrive while escaping from a robbery. One of them, George, shares a secret history with Olga. The confident mechanic suddenly becomes emotionally vulnerable, changing her clothes and allowing herself to remember the woman she was before disappointment hardened her. The film's famous scene comes the following morning. George leaves Olga's room while fastening his coat, and the camera does not need to explain what happened. At nearly the same moment, Myra returns after discovering that the young man she trusted has used her feelings against her. The two sisters face the same painful truth from opposite sides of experience. When Olga learns George only approached her to distract her from a robbery, romance turns into betrayal. The final confrontation is fast, quiet, and tragic, leaving Olga to return to her work as though nothing happened. The Legion of Decency placed the movie on its first banned film list, while the Hays office objected to its implied relationships and bold dialogue. Today, its refusal to punish or shame its women makes it feel years ahead of Hollywood's later moral dramas. Number 2. The Bachelor Father, 1931. At first glance, this looks like a polished drawing room comedy about an older British gentleman suddenly facing the results of his careless youth. Sir Basil Winterton discovers that he may have 3 grown children living in different parts of the world. Instead of hiding from the problem, he brings all 3 to his mansion and attempts to decide which one deserves to become his heir. The fun comes from watching his formal household collapse under the pressure of modern personalities. One possible son is an American businessman, another is an irresponsible young man, and the supposed daughter, Antoinette, brings romance and confusion into the house. Sir Basil begins the story treating these people like embarrassing evidence. Slowly, he learns to see them as human beings. Its most memorable moments come from C. Aubrey Smith's battle between pride and affection. Every stiff expression suggests a man terrified that kindness might destroy his reputation. Meanwhile, Marion Davies gives Antoinette warmth, wit, and enough independence to challenge his authority. Censors were far less amused. The story's references to children born outside marriage caused dialogue cuts across several territories, while Ireland banned the film completely. Extra material was reportedly inserted into some versions to suggest that the children were legitimate. Yet its real message survived. Family is created by loyalty, not by social approval. Number 1. All Quiet on the Western Front, 1930. A classroom full of young German students listens as their teacher describes war as an adventure filled with glory, honor, and national pride. Excited by his speech, the boys enlist together. Louis Milestone then spends the rest of the movie showing how completely that speech betrayed them. Lou Ayres plays Paul Boehmer, a sensitive student who reaches the front expecting purpose. Instead, he finds hunger, mud, confusion, endless noise, and officers who cannot explain why small pieces of land are worth so many lives. The older soldier Cat becomes his guide, teaching him practical ways to survive. The first major battle destroys every romantic idea the students carried from school. Milestone's camera moves beside soldiers charging across open ground, then cuts to hands gripping barbed wire after the bodies have fallen out of view. The image communicates loss without needing graphic detail. Another devastating sequence traps Paul in a shell crater with a French soldier he has wounded. Forced to remain beside the dying man, Paul searches his pockets, learns his name, and promises to help his family. By morning, survival has replaced the promise, but the guilt remains. When Paul returns home, civilians ask him to describe heroic victories. His former teacher is already encouraging another group of boys to enlist. Paul tells them that dying for one's country is neither clean nor beautiful, but they call him a coward. The final scene is almost silent. Paul reaches toward a butterfly beyond the trench while a distant marksman watches. His hand falls still just before the army report declares the front quiet. Nazi supporters disrupted German screenings, and the government banned the film on December 11, 1930. A shortened version returned briefly before the Nazi regime prohibited it again. Yet censorship could not erase its message. War is not a parade created by leaders. It is a disaster experienced by ordinary people who were told that questioning it was shameful. Nearly a century later, that truth has not lost its power. These films were banned, cut, rejected, or buried because they showed subjects Hollywood was ordered to hide. Yet the censors failed. The forbidden scenes survived, the uncomfortable ideas returned, and the movies became classics. Which masterpiece shocked you most, and which film should have ranked #1? Share your answer below, like the video, and subscribe to the channel for more forgotten movies that Hollywood once hoped audiences would never see.